Someone you know appears in porn clip. Oh, a buddy of mine's mom was a pornster for like 2 years in the 2000s, I think. When he was still in high school, kids would make fun of him and watch the videos in front of him during lunch and he got into quite a few fights. Edit. To clarify, I have no idea if he was alive when she made the pornos or not. A friend of mine, who had a tutor for his Arabic class, later stumbled upon her on some porn site. Apparently it had been filmed in her dorm room. He immediately added her on Facebook lol. I have actually stumbled upon a current friend's vid recently. It puts me in a bit of a pickle. The guy in the vid is not her boyfriend whom she has had a child with and been together for over 5 years now. I know the video is recent as there is a tattoo on her that she had gotten a little over 2 years ago. While I was mortified to see her performing so many naughty acts with another guy, I still rubbed one out as she was making eye contact with the screen. I've known really shy NSFW since elementary school until we graduated high school. Not too long after high school she had the alias Barbie, I believe, when doing amateur stuff. She was definitely better looking as a blonde. I won't give her real name, but I guess she eventually went pro. I'm friends with a guy who does a lot of camera work for pornos, both amateur and professional, and I thought this was worth sharing. He says that one of the key rules on porn shoots is that you aren't allowed to talk about kids, ever, for any reason. Apparently it's a surefire trigger for the pornsters, for obvious reasons, and just mention of children can cause massive setbacks and make everyone lose money. One shoot in particular he remembers quite well, and it wasn't because of the sex. The shoot was a threesome with 2 girls and 1 man, but before the threesome began there was a shot of the busty ladies trying on lingerie in front of mirror. At one point one of them complained about the size of their breasts. They were easily a double D, and how difficult it was to find bras that fit as it was in the script. To set up the scene, the other woman seemed to forget part of her line, and by accident said, "Wish your daughter could help you." And without hesitation or even contemplation, the other woman haymaked her to the floor. A hair-pulling punch-out ensued, and the shoot had to be postponed due to one of the actresses suffering a dislocated nose. Goes without saying, don't mention children in the porn industry. They have no place in adult film. I did a bit of amateur type stuff, and so have seen a few people I know who did the same thing / a few friends. I also did a little cam work, and sometimes wondered what if the person on the other end knows me, as long as my mum doesn't see it. Yes, my uncle, when I was 12. It wasn't amateur. He actually has awards for this shit. I didn't tell my dad about it until I was 15. Lol, he isn't my real uncle BTW. Dad's best friend. His wife is an ex-porn star. Edit if it's anything to you. On /b/ I found a nude of me an ex had posted, I assume. Thankfully my face was cut out. Not my parents, but there's a kid in my class whose mom was like a side actor in a few pornos. Never did anything sexual, but you would see her walking by or reading a magazine or something along those lines, and some decided it would be funny to post the scenes of his mother on his Snap story. I went out with this girl a few times, but we didn't really click, though she was crazy about me. She was a bit of an airhead and her brother was overprotective and over-involved. We eventually drifted apart after I essentially rejected a sex offer at a party. Fast forward a few months, I'm surfing porn, and I stumble upon a page from the website Dorm, and, lo and behold, the first video is of her throwing her tits around at some party. Now, she had fake tits, actually one of the reasons I was kinda turned off by her, and after finally seeing them in the video I'm happy with my decision to avoid exposure. The video is still linked on the front page of the Dorm site. Edit. Also, I went to high school with a girl who now does porn under the name May. Once stumbled onto a series of photoshoots and videos of a girl I know. I felt compelled to download them all and watch a few, just for good measure and blackmail if necessary. I was horribly disappointed by her lack of skills when she tried talking dirty or acting innocent. I was also disappointed with the lack of maintenance surrounding a certain portion of her body. I'm also friends with her boyfriend, too, and I can clearly tell that a number of the videos were filmed while they were going out, but I'm not certain that he knows anything about them. I went to UK University of Kai, and during my sophomore year I lived in a dorm that was mostly for the women's basketball and volleyball teams as well as the marching band. Not real sure exactly how a couple of my friends and myself made it into the dorm, but I digress. There were 2 girls who lived in the room below mine who played on the volleyball team who were drop dead gorgeous, but had that slut vibe. These suspicions were confirmed when my friend found a couple pictures of these 2 girls from within the walls of the dorm. One of the pictures featured one of the girls with clamps on her nipples that looked like it was hooked up to some sort of electricity generator. If anyone has any idea what this could possibly be, I would love to know. Andy Valentino went to homecoming with my best friend in high school, now does softcore porn. And the kicker is she wouldn't even kiss my friend because she was very religious. Talk about a 180. 2 weeks after a rather tough breakup I went on a date with a new girl, called her H. The date went very well, and we connected really well. Somehow my ex found out about this and did some digging. Turns out H had sex video that was all over a few amateur sites. So she did what any reasonable human being would have and called me and described it to me in uncomfortable detail. A year later I was sat in class when a school friend passed over his phone. Check this out. Apparently she lives in our town and yep, there was H getting by some dude. I guess when it's someone you barely know it's kinda awesome. But when it's someone you really like it's kind of sickening. Unless you're into that kind of thing I guess. In college we lived next to a guy who said his mom had been a porn star. Even when drunk he wouldn't tell us her name, but always claimed he didn't know who his father was, but assumed it was Ron Jeremy. He definitely looked a lot like him. Said the whole thing really fucked him up. He was a sappy drunk and would go on and on about it if you let him start, which convinced most of us his story was true. My uncle is a porn producer and former talent of some note. He is married to another porn star, also of some note, but older now. Don't care if you believe me, not naming names or providing any proof. If you met them in a social setting, you'd never suspect they were anything but normal, yet somewhat fashionable people unless you recognize them. Behind the curtains, they certainly have a good sex life and have an open-ish marriage. They occasionally fool around with others, but are mostly monogamous. I had sex with a guy for 3 years who ended up being in porn, if that counts. He was good in bed. His videos are awkward to watch though. I still deeply cared about him, and it saddened me to see the odd video where he clearly can't be bothered and isn't enjoying it. A girl I went to school with moved away, only to come back via the internet with an entire porn site set up, dedicated to her. It was hilarious, because it was an American site, and it claimed that she was Texan. Yet I live in Australia, and so did she, and yes, I'm 100% positive that it was her. We always knew she'd get into the porn industry. She was that kind of a girl. Also, a friend of mine was going down a street in Sydney, again, in Australia, when he saw a girl he went to high school with, working the corner. He asked for mates rates, but she politely declined. My cousin's sister was a camster in India, and she was almost in porn industry, but a guy living near her found her on live cam and soon it was downhill for my uncle, aunt and my sister. They had to shift their house to some other place because everyone in society was asking and teasing him. My aunt survived an heart attack, and for a long time she was in hospital, and my sister left house and ran away with her boyfriend and never came back. One thing I learned is Indian people are not very liberal when it comes to these things. I accidentally found a nerd in our class, was son of a porn star. I told all my friends, then we used to go to his house and group study, as an excuse to use a toilet we used to take turns fuck a hot porn star. We did this every weekend. One of the dumbest recorded a video and sent to everyone in school to brag that he f***ed Jim's mom. Kid got mad and told his dad. They left town next week. It was fun while it lasted. This was 2 years ago. I had recently broken up with a long-term girlfriend and was talking to a friend, a woman I had dated briefly, online. I mentioned to her I was going to put an ad on Craigslist to find someone to come do my dishes for me. She said that she'd do my dishes. I jokingly responded, well, if you do, you have to be just as good if not better than who I'd hire, which means you have to do it in your underwear. Why do you think I'm going through Craigslist? To which she responded pretty much, yeah okay, I can do that. So me of course having to see how serious she was said also, you have to make brownies. And she was still like, okay, I can do that. I'll see you Saturday. Star wipe to Saturday afternoon, so Saturday comes along, and she texts me to see if we are still on. I had really thought she was kidding, but I said sure, we are still on. So, shortly thereafter she shows up at my apartment. I'll let her in. She steps inside, looks at my kitchen and says well, I better get started, and then proceeded to just strip down to her underwear without another word, and went to work on the dishes. I went into my studio to watch a movie. After a while, she comes out, says she's done with the dishes, and gets on the couch with me, still in her underwear. Fade out to montage of these having sex on his couch. No balls and angle shots. So, after the sex she gets off the couch, goes to her backpack and whips out a box of brownie mix, and goes back into the kitchen, and proceeds to make brownies. Then, while the brownies were baking, more sex. We hooked up a few more times over the next few months, but eventually parted ways. So, yeah, like I said, not sure that counts, but it's what I got. TL. Doctor jokingly suggested to a friend that I would be willing to hire her to do my dishes, but she'd have to do it in her underwear and also make me brownies. She agreed and I wound up having sex and getting brownies. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button.